All right. Emergency video. So, somebody asked me to watch Jessica X's latest video about what's the title of the video? Hold on a second. Let me tell you what the title of the video is. Black women are refusing to date black men, but which men are they really getting? And there's a video in here that she addresses because the person that sent me this video wanted me to see this specific part. This video was streamed 20 hours ago, and it's a white guy from the UK, and it says why I don't date black women. And I listened to his segment of the video, and I listened to Jessica X's commentary. I'd say for the overwhelming most part, I mean, she was spot on. There were certain things that she commented on that I would have added upon. But other than that, I'm like, nah, what she had to say was spot on about, the white dude and what he was saying. Basically, and it was so cringe. I mean, it was so cringe. I mean, I was listening to it as it was playing. She had already watched it, so she was kind of adding commentary saying where he was going. And for some reason, when she said where he was going, I didn't think that he was actually going to go there. I don't know why I didn't think he was going to go there, but he literally went there. And so basically, this is what it comes down to. And I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for years. I've been thinking about it more recently. I've been, watching a number of videos that kind of reinforce and corroborate my ideas. And I try to look at things from a global perspective and then from a local perspective. And so Vox News has been putting out a number of videos about right-wing extremism in Europe and how all these right-wing anti-immigration, basically anti-black, Middle Easterner, sort of anti-Muslim. I mean, you name it. Just basically largely blacks and Muslims, because I really don't think that they're focused on Asians. The model minority, right? But then again, it's coronavirus, so you probably got some anti-Asianness in there as well. I was recently watching, because I watched the one about Italy, I watched the one about Germany, and then this was one about Greece. And they were talking about the Golden Dawn, this group called Golden Dawn that came to prominence and was basically a neo-Nazi group. And in there, what they talked about, one of the guys, he hit the nail on the head. And this is the same thing is going on in America, and it's the reason why elements, that, followed Trump and the, Make America Great Again. It's the reason why they supported him. And I talked about this, and the reason why they stormed the Capitol. Okay. The system of white supremacy has essentially like two parts to it. And the first part is maintaining white hegemony across the board, or at least the illusion of it. White supremacy all day. The second part is classism. Because I don't know what it is about white folks. They think they see everything in a black and white binary as opposed to seeing it in terms of class. And the only time that they want to bring up class is when black people bring up race. And I'm like, because you were on the racial shit 5 minutes ago. Now all of a sudden you would say, well, it's not about race, it's about class. No, it's about race when you ignore your own class as a white person. And it's like, again, Stokely Carmichael tried to bring this up when he was a part of the communist auto workers. If you go and you type in the communist auto workers, it's a black and white video, and he lays that shit out, talking about the classism within the white group. And it's already been explained, the poor or middle class or, working class whites are not going to side with the minorities, especially black people, because, they're looking for, zaddy to pat them on the head and basically elevate them. And since they have all the wealth and the power, it's easier to pander to those in power than to actually oppose those in power. And again, white men, white middle class or working class or poor men opposing the how I want to say this, opposing the current white power structure would disrupt white supremacy and white hegemony. And then there's the risk of there's no telling who might fill the vacuum or who might fill the void, and they might not be white. So they'd rather have white tyranny, at the top of everything than to have black tyranny or Asian tyranny or Arab tyranny or any other tyranny, right? Which makes sense, right? But again, it gets to a point where the working class and middle class white men are so disadvantaged that they no longer feel the tuggings of what it is to be white. They no longer feel the benefits of white supremacy, right? And so in that Greek documentary that Vox did, they were highlighting this, and they were saying that because of COVID, because of the austerity measures, because I don't know if y'all, are aware, but Greek, went through, they almost went through bankruptcy, and then they got bailed out by the EU, and then they wanted to break away from the EU because the austerity measures were too much for people to bear, right? So people were really struggling. I don't know if you all remember. I think there was a black American who went to Greece, and he was at some bar, and then he got in a fight, and then he got killed. And Advise show, did an episode on it. But I'm pretty sure that was in Greece. You know what I mean? And so what you see, like the world over, is you see you got a lot of young white men that, unlike in the 50s and the 60s, where you had manufacturing bases, especially in America. America was producing, like you could graduate high school. You didn't have to go to college. You could go work in a factory, unionized wages. You had full medical and dental. You could buy a house. You could, marry a woman. She could be a stay-at-home wife, and you could live a comfortable lifestyle, send your kids off to college. That does not exist anymore. So now you need two incomes, right? Feminism brought all that in, right? You need two incomes. The bankers are happy. You know what I mean? The people that have to deal with the exchange of money, they're happy because they get to scrape, whatever off the top whenever there's this exchange of money. And now everything's more expensive and two incomes and all this other stuff. So now, like, women essentially don't have the option to not work anymore unless they're going to date into the, the super wealthy. And I actually took the video that Jessica X did and I sent it to a white guy. And I wanted to get his opinion on it. And now we talked about this before, and, every so often he gets really, really honest with me. And he talks about how, white women are spoiled. We've ruined white women. I remember he told me that there's a slight jealousy when it comes to black men. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, because you guys have basically like cracked the code, even though I don't really agree with the whole idea that we cracked the code, but I get what he's saying. Like, I don't think it was something that was intentionally done on black men's part. I think that what he's not recognizing is that, no, this was white elite men's attempt to keep black men distracted away from wealth and power. And so they turned us into beautiful black men and sex objects. And they turned, black women into the, the work mules and the strong, independent woman and you go girl that nobody wants to date. Okay, so they role reversed, the community so that, black men essentially are no longer a threat. Everything they do is about, partying and bitches and hoes and, sex and all that other stuff, sex, drugs and mayhem. Right. And so that's why in a previous video that I didn't upload yet, I was saying that the life expectancy for black men is 30 years old. Because after 30 years old, there's nothing else after that. The whole, being a part of a strong, intact patriarchal community, married with wife and kids and everything, like that's like either a dead concept or a dying concept in the black community. I mean, you got black people running around talking about, marriage is for white people and all this other stuff. And there's a lot of problems that we run into as black people that we've had for a long time that other communities are just seemingly starting to run into, and namely, the white community. And so, he said, black men, you all are able to get all these attractive and beautiful women without having to have what we have. Like, he's like, we gotta maintain the reputation of being white men. We gotta maintain the reputation of being conquerors and having wealth and having millions of dollars. Like a black guy could walk up into the club, and he's got a fraction of my net worth or my wealth with a bad bitch, and I gotta have X, Y, and Z in order to get the same caliber of woman, in terms of looks. Just to get the same now and all that caliber stuff. Like, again, it all depends on, how you want to look at it. What's her pedigree, what's her background, all that other stuff. Even I wouldn't argue that black men are out here getting women who come from, these pedigrees, right? Because wealth deals with wealth, right? And so, a white man, he may go off and he may marry, a well-to-do white woman, but honestly, secretly behind the scenes, there's a lot of the women that they like that have the same aesthetic appeal as the same women that black rappers will, walk around with. And I know because I'll get Instagram links, to all these mixed biracial women, exotical women, women with fat asses and everything. Mind you, this guy is Italian, so it's a little different. Maybe if he was Irish or German, it'd be different. You know what I mean? But I can tell you this: his wife doesn't. What he sends me, his wife does not look like. That's the funny part. His wife is a basic Becky. She's a basic Becky. That's what he married, right? And there was some other stuff, because actually she didn't really come from money, but she played the role in terms of, cooking and cleaning and domestic skills and playing a traditional role. But now, to be honest, he's kind of got a little bit of regret when it comes to that, because he's spoiled her. I mean, he has horses and, does all type of stuff. He bitches to me about her spending, $300 or what was it? It was $300 or $3,000. I forget what it was. I'm getting her hair done on a regular basis, nails done, all that stuff. So she's basically a little princess. And then, he'll travel and he'll go on business trips and he'll ask her to do small things. And I remember one day he called me blacking out. I mean, he was spazzing. Because he was like, I do this, and I do that for her, and I do that. And all I asked her to do one fucking thing, and she can't do it. He was flipping out, because she was too busy getting her nails done or something. And he blew a gasket. And he called me up, and he's walking through the airport, marching through the airport. Just going the hell off. Yelling. Did not care who was around him, like in the middle of the conversation. Fuck are you looking at? It was hilarious because, again, I knew the backstory, but I'm just saying his whole position is that we have spoiled our women rotten. And so, listening to the guy in the video that Jessica X, did the video clip of, he brought up the same point about white women being spoiled, right? And so when you look at the bigger picture, right, the economy for the middle class white man has not been great. The wealth gap is growing. I know white men that have killed. I know non-white men that have killed it. They made a killing. Bitcoin at its highest point. They made a killing in terms of the housing market. They made a killing. In terms of, other investments. They're just like, it is, if you had money before the pandemic and you invested that money properly, you made a killing. If you didn't have money before the pandemic, you're struggling. Okay. And there's a lot of, and again, the wealth, the people that have the wealth and the resources, they're a small fraction of the population. The majority of the population is not doing that well. Okay. Why do you think those people stormed the Capitol? They're not doing that well. And white people have a lot of entitlement when it comes to that, because they're not supposed to be doing like, the minorities and the immigrants and the poors, and they're not supposed to be there. They're white, god damn it. Okay. And so in that Greek video, they were highlighting that the neo-Nazis, they tapped into that, the Donald Trumps and that sort of rhetoric of, America first, Greece first, Germany first, France first, whatever. They tapped into that because, again, these people were getting crushed. The irony is they're getting crushed not by immigrants who are coming into the country and, oh, all your tax dollars are going to taking care of these immigrants that don't give back to society. No, they're getting crushed by the white elites. They're getting crushed by the bankers. They're getting crushed by, the corporations, they want to cut people's benefits and don't want to do full medical and dental. Okay. Arguably they're getting crushed by the J people who are also a part of that infrastructure. But if you say it, then all of a sudden, you're anti-J, you're anti, starts with an S. Right. So, you get into that. But I'm saying that circle of people, whoever they may be, that control the vast majority of resources, who are overwhelmingly white, those are the people that are crushing your average run-of-the-mill white person. And a lot of them have bought into the idea that, they're supposed to be here. Quiet as is kept. A lot of black people have bought into the idea. We still buy into the idea. Black people are running around. You ask a woman, how much money a man needs to make in order to talk to her or something. She'll say 6 figures. That's an old, antiquated number that was balling out of control in the 90s. But like, it's not like that anymore. Okay. 6 figures will get you a comfortable middle class lifestyle, but it is not balling out of control. If you're making just $100,000, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to be riding around in an S-Class Mercedes Benz that cost $100,000. You see what I'm saying? Like, you got to get into the 2s and the 3s. But yet I don't hear anybody saying I need a man making $300,000, which again, totally unrealistic because of, what is that? The top 3% of income, something like that. It's in the 3 to 1%. Anyway, what was I going? I'm going blank. I'm trying to keep this smooth. So, a lot of black people, we buy into this, and when I hear a lot of the rhetoric coming from the swirling camps about, especially maybe they're a little bit better than when they were before, but there's still a lot of delusion that goes on. There's still a lot of, idolizing white men and they're just perfect and they all are just rich and, the only reason white men aren't dating them or men in that category aren't dating black women is because, black women aren't open to them. Right. Like, one of the things that I wish Jessica pointed out was the whole thing with white wealth and this white guy going up there basically saying, white women demand too much and black women are trying to move up the ladder, move up socioeconomically. And so since I have less to offer, I'm going to get with a black woman and black women need to get with me because what I have that is not acceptable for today's, entitled white women, it should be enough for a black woman. And then the black woman's trying to move up based on my whiteness alone and the white privilege that I have. I mean, this is literally what this guy is up there trying to sell. She should get with me. This black woman should get with me and we can make it work. But then he really goes to show you that his preference is not black women, because then he demands that black women go off and talk to white feminists to get white feminists to change their behavior, to basically the black woman be used as, some sort of shaming cudgel for white women. Like, look, you all are so terrible. Your white men left you for us. So maybe if you curbed your behavior, your white men would come back. And sure as shit, as if white women got off the feminist shit, and stopped with the, 80% of women wanting only, 20% of dudes or less, that white guy would quickly go and choose a white woman, which is what he prefers, which again, white men linking up with white women maintains white supremacy and maintains white wealth and white hegemony. Plain and simple. And that's what a lot of these middle class white men really want to be a part of. But when they see that they can't be a part of that, then they go into, okay, well, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to date these other women and swirl it up and use my white privilege. Now, I try to think whether African American men have that. I would say that we have that in terms of American privilege. There is an American privilege when you're black versus if you're straight African. I already know if I go to France or Sweden or the UK and I'm like, oh, I'm American, I'm going to have a little bit more status than the other black Africans or even Caribbean blacks they think are just immigrants and they're poor. And, that's what it is. That American idea, like, again, these antiquated ideas that people have, that shit still exists. Okay, I remember when I first came online, it was a guy, he was talking to some Serbian woman and, he brought her over. You see this on that show. What's that show where the people get married and you get the black men and they go and they get some woman from some Eastern European country. And she's like, oh, I got with American black man. And oh, I'm going to America. Oh, and it's going. And the guy brings her over and he's living at home with his mama. Right. You seen that shit? Right. So a lot of them still have that type of idea. That if you're American, I mean, you got to be doing better than Bulgaria, or you got to be doing better than Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, or Romania and all these others, sort of countries, in the Balkans and the Baltics, right? So, what was I saying? So, he really showed his hand. I mean, he really showed his hand. And this brings me all the way back to, I forget what it was. There was a white guy who was talking shit. He was a teacher and that was a different story. That was actually, one of my, black female friends who she was dating a white guy and he was a teacher. And then, what he was doing is he was going into the ghetto and going into black clubs and then flexing his whiteness. And then even though he was just a teacher, right? So teachers make anywhere from, I don't know, depending on what state, 35,000 to, 40,000. If they have, I know some teachers that can make up to 90 if they have a really kick-ass district and, they get, tenure and all that other stuff. But anyway, it's all over the place. And there's a lot of teachers out here that aren't making money. And, you'll see states and teachers walking away from the profession. I think Oklahoma had a whole bunch of teachers walk away because they weren't making enough money to live. So anyway, I was talking to her and, this is the type of things. I mean, this is what was going on. Okay. And I helped her see it. I didn't make her see it, but I helped her see it. And she recognized what was going on and the little subtle stuff that he was doing. And this guy reminds me of that. Okay. He's a failure with his own women. And so he thinks, oh, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to date some sisters and I'm going to leverage that until something changes with white women. And then I will dump the black chick and I'll go back to the white women. The sexual market is very funny. And I've argued this forever, that the sexual market between black men and black women is not the same. When I hear black women talk about they want to interracially date, notice it's always white men. It's always white men. It's never anybody else where black men are like open to dating everything. They'll date Asian, they'll date Indian, they'll date Arab, they'll date, all that. Right. And I'm thinking black men and black women have the same issue that they have to deal with interracially dating, which is the idea of, the way that other people view black people. Right. So if they think that black is just, the bottom of the barrel, like, like you're going to have to deal with that. Like no black American can go off and sit there and say, oh, it's just easy for me to just go over to this community and I can just freely move about and date about. Like it doesn't play that way. But as we've seen, as the numbers and the statistics show, black men have an easier time interracially dating than black women. That's not even up for debate. That's statistically what it is. And, the thing that I notice is like one of the things that doesn't get brought up, because everybody wants to focus on white. Yes, we're in America. The majority of people in America are white. You know what I mean? Me personally, like example, I have an attraction to dark-skinned Indian women. I think dark-skinned Indian women are beautiful. Right. But, I already know that dark-skinned Indian women, I'm a black man. They're not interested in me. They got colorism issues, fair and lovely, skin bleaching creams, all that stuff. Right. And so in America, right, I may be open to dating other races of women that are not white. I may even prefer them, which actually I do. But I'm saying I may even prefer them, but that doesn't mean that they're open to me. White women, ironically, are the most open to dating black men out of any other racial group. So a lot of times people get caught up in the white skin. They used to irritate me with the whole, black men, they want a white one. I was like, actually, we would pick Spanish over white any day of the week. The overwhelming majority of us. We pick exoticals over that any day of the week. I mean, even the white guy, he mentioned that in there about, the racially ambiguous women and how like they're winning in the UK, which even further reinforces what some of the white women have been doing, because where all these white exoticals come from. They're not coming from white men in the UK getting with black women. They're coming from black men getting with white women and whatever other women that they're getting with. And that doesn't mean marriage. That doesn't mean a union. It just means that the initial physical attraction is there and something's going down. And so like this is what's been going on with black men. The idea that the idea that black men can't get other races of women is, I mean, that's like not a thing. Again, people try to use these sort of numbers, and I don't want to sit there and dismiss, validate one group of statistics and dismiss another. But I'm saying based on black women's complaints, based on all these mixed kids that we keep seeing, I mean, they just had. I'm not even going to use that. I'm not even going to use Jamie Foxx and he was out there with some white woman, because Jamie Foxx is a multimillionaire. Like, so you're going to see that. So I can't use a millionaire and compare him to regular dudes. But we all know, again, based on black women's complaints, that there's a lot of black men out here that are swirling it up. We all know this. You know what I mean? You just want a white woman, all these sort of complaints and everything. We've been hearing it. The black women feel some type of way. The animosity's there. It's because they see it when they go out in public. They see it. Okay. But with black men, if, not only are they open to dating everything, but I'm saying if everything is open to dating them, they will date everything. They will date an Eskimo bitch. They will date a Hawaiian chick. They will date a chick from Syria. They will date a chick from, Guyana. They will date a chick from India. They will date, a chick from, Iceland and Sweden and China and Japan and Korea and the Philippines. And like black men do not care. If the chick looks good to them and they're attracted, that's all that there is. Okay. Where with black women, I mean, look at the titles of the video. It's always black women swirling it up, interracial dating, white. And so the trouble that black women oftentimes run into, and this is one of the things that I mean, for that white guy to say that black women should be cringing themselves, for him to sit there and say, oh, well, I know that you all want to move up the social ladder, and I'm white, so, you should, link up with me and I'm going to use that to my advantage. See, that says that black women have been stating too loudly, what their moves are. Now, I know that there's some people who have warned black women about that. They're like, y'all need to learn to move in silence instead of, freaking telegraphing, what your move is. But, even Sandman has called this out. He's one of the white MGTOWs. Even he has called this out, with the whole, oh, we're going to white men for the socioeconomics. White men don't want that. White men want to be lusted and desired for them, which essentially, is what Asian women give them. That's why you see more white men with Asian women, because Asian women thirst white men. Whether you want to say it's self-hate, colorism, whatever, there's still the physical aspect to it. Black women have not demonstrated that to white men in mass. Asian women have. Asian women, especially those that are here, again, we already know white men control the businesses and do the hiring and pay people and whatnot. But in terms of income earners, Asian men earn more income, than white men, in those, middle management positions that Asian men are oftentimes, stuck at, and Asian women and whatnot. But I'm saying Asians have businesses, they have Chinatowns, they have Koreatowns. So the economics for the Asians, especially Asian Americans, is there. So when Asian women are hanging off of white men's testicles, they're not doing it because white men have wealth and white men have resources. They're not, like, in other words, that whole aspect of wealth and status and everything, that already exists in the Asian community. Asians already function like that within the Asians themselves. So there is no desperation of getting out of poverty when it comes to the vast majority of Asian Americans. It's not there. They're just trying to, kind of stay where they are, hang out where they are. So when they're getting with white men, it's either that they genuinely just like the white guy, or you run into the same area that is argued for black men, which is, the thirst category, when black men are out there dating, exoticals and light skins and non-black women and whatnot, the thirst category. So there's the physical aspect there. Black women do not give any race of men that, even white men, because y'all don't talk about Asians. Y'all don't, and I know there's a handful of videos. Oh, what about black women and Asians? And then you get into that like sort of double rejection situation where it's like Asian men feel rejected by Asian women because Asian women want white men, and then black women feel rejected by black men. So the two rejects should get together. And that's going to be awkward when you have two people who get together and know that they're both rejected. That's always going to be awkward. Okay. And so you have that imbalance there. But I'm just highlighting the fact that, like, there's too many black women who have made it a point to say we only want to get with white men because of resources. We don't actually genuinely find them physically attractive. We prefer black men physically attractive, but black men don't want us. We prefer hypermasculinity, but again, black men don't want us. So we're going to get with white men because, well, nana boo boo, white men have all the power and have more resources. And white men, they're on YouTube too. They sit around and they hear and they listen to that shit. Again, I'm telling you, men do not like being lusted and desired solely for their finances. They want to know that you're genuinely and physically interested in them. And people take mental shortcuts. They look at, what do you want to call it? They take mental shortcuts and they look at the patterns. They look at it's pattern recognition. Okay. When I go somewhere and I see a bunch of Asian women, like I have it in my mind that nothing's going to pop off. Even though I might be open to Asian women, I really do not expect Asian women to be interested in me as a black man. Now, I know people tell me, oh, man, out in LA, man, it's different. Or if you're talking about Filipinos who are more open, because technically speaking, many of them are mixed race. But, I don't really have that much luck with Asian women. So I write them off. That's just me. I've talked about this before. Not to say I've never been with an Asian woman, but I'm saying, I'm unsuccessful with that. I do better with white, black, and Hispanic. That's what I do better with. But anyway, Black men, and we talked about this with the whole thirst thing. Other black men, and I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad, or I'm definitely not saying it's a good thing. But that whole thirst factor, other races of women have caught wind of. And women like attention, women like thirst, you know what I mean? And so here you got black men that are promoted in media, sports and entertainment, the face of youth culture, the face of hip hop, which is one of the most popular genres of music out there. So you got all the I don't know, the young people's social status that surrounds that. And then you have that thirst factor that other women, will, they like, because there's a lot of women. There's women that, that are a little thicker than the men in their particular group, care for. I mean, you can find this on Instagram. If you look around and you look at a white girl that you already know, like when they thick and they're built a certain way, you already know that majority of their own men are like, nah, I'm good. That's too much. Like I said, we have the widest palette when it comes to shapes and sizes and all that. That's why, like, when black women try to slam black men for dating fat white women, and I'm like, but they date fat black women, you're technically speaking insulting yourself. That never made sense to me. You know what I mean? It just never made sense, to try to devalue the white woman and then try to sell a black man, a fat black woman that you see absolutely no issue with. And then when black men criticize black women for being fat, you want to give a whole bunch of pushback when they're criticizing you for being fat, right? And then, like I said, men that actually have status and wealth and prestige, they're not dating fat anything. You know what I mean? At best, you'll get slim thick. But I'm saying, so, now you have this market for black men, at least, where these women are like, oh, if I'm not appreciated here, I can go over to black men and I can get attention over here. Now, again, that's a double-edged sword, because sometimes you'll have some nasty women that'll come over, and because they were dealing with some black broke dusties, they think that, that every black man's going to go for them. And I hate that. You get some 300-pound white woman acting like, she got that good wop. And I'm like, get the hell out of here. Right. But I'm just saying, black men are very open. African-American men are very open and dating out. And a lot of women, they sense that and they like that and they appreciate it, the thirst, whatever. And, for black men, it's like I'm trying to think, like, well, how's the attitude? Like, even in terms of, like, the money and the resources. I think the money and the resources, matter. I think the most dangerous man on the planet, on planet Earth, is a black man with money, especially a young black man with money. It's one of the reasons why white men, they feel some type of way when they see a black man with money. They feel some type of way, because, it's like, okay, we helped create the whole swagnificence of black men with the way that we promoted them, and we, promoted hip hop in order to, for the white elite men to make their money and skim it off the top, but then we didn't look at the residual effects of female nature, which goes back to what, the white guy I was telling you about, what he said about, it looks like black men are cheating the system. Because, what is the purpose of life, right? What is the purpose of all this? When you look at the world, right? It is, to ensure one's genetic survival, to procreate, right? To pass, you can't take any of this shit with you, is to pass it on genetically and everything, right? And we talk about this internally in the black community. We talk about this, as it pertains to, like, why am I doing all this if Ray Ray and Pookie is getting all the pussy? Well, other communities look at all black men like we're all Ray Ray and Pookie. You know what I mean? They're like, well, how is it that they're attracting and getting women when we have more than what they got? And again, a lot of it has to do with the double-edged sword for white men, which is the way that black men are promoted in the media. You see, and you see how they're trying to do shit now with the way that, if white men were really wanted to, just absolutely stay on top and just decimate the black community, they would continue to promote black men the same way that they're promoting them with this whole, the blacks are attacking Asians and all that other shit. And they just want to show you every homeless, a mentally deranged black person attacking an Asian, and then call that, like, some black conspiracy, like black people are sitting around on some round tables, like the knights of, King Arthur, plotting on Asians, right? Because that has an effect on people. It has an effect on Asian women. Like, I wouldn't want to holler at an Asian chick now, even if I was interested. I wouldn't want to holler at one. You know what I mean? Because she sees my face and her face. Oh, are you going to attack me? Are you the type to? That's the power of media. And this white guy I'm talking about, he even acknowledged that, they never considered the double-edged sword of the power of media. Like, it's like, I'm like, yeah, white men went out there and they intentionally portrayed black men as the ultimate bad boys, the savages. Like, even with Birth of a Nation, the black man raping the white woman. You know how many white women got rape fantasies? Y'all come out with 50 Shades of Grey and all this other stuff. And the idea of some black man lusting them like that, like women do have rape fantasies, contrary to popular belief. Not saying that women want to be raped, but they have rape fantasies, meaning the idea that a man is so attracted to them that he cannot resist himself and he is willing to do anything, to have her. Some women like that, especially there's this guy that did a whole video on it on YouTube, talking about, how rape absolves women of accountability of a sexual act because it wasn't her. She didn't act upon it. So therefore she doesn't have to feel guilty, even though during the act she might, have some sense of pleasure. Like, there's all type of articles and stuff that have been written about, that. But again, it's different when it's non-consensual and it's coming from a guy that they actually find attractive and they actually desire. They just don't want to own the sexual act as a woman because of, again, the socialization of the genders, right? So, why not go off on that tangent? Anyway, so I just see the black men and black women in the sexual market. I know there's a lot of black women. They try to equalize it. They try to, say, oh, well, if we just wake up on the left side of bed and decide to interracially date, it's just going to happen like that. And there's so much more behind black men interracially and dating out that supports them than black women, going and interracially dating out. I'm talking about, be it the media. I'm talking about, even these sorts of cultural orientations. I have been said that black men and black women have two different cultures. And when I first originally told Cap that, he didn't believe me. I said, it got two different cultures, my man. We got two different cultures. You know what I mean? Black women have a lot of baggage they try to bring over the fence that black men don't. You know what I mean? They just don't. You start talking about, I'm an original woman, Earth Mother, Goddess, High Priestess, Hoteptress, melanin looking out my third eye, and you want to be valued on that principle. How can you take that over the fence? I'm sure there's some idiot black men that try to do the same thing, but I'm saying there's way more black women that seemingly, engage in that sort of thinking and only exclusively want to date black men. Then when they try to click over and they try to date white men, they can't let it go. The same thing goes for the matriarchy and the attitude and the diva queenness and everything else. I mean, the white guy said at the very beginning, he said black women are in their masculine energy. I mean, he didn't phrase it exactly like that, but basically he said they come off as masculine, which is what we've been said. And the thing is I wonder, why is that? Why is it they come off masculine? And, we can talk about the community being broken and these women having these sort of orientations and beliefs. And I'd argue that it's a combination of feminism and it's a combination of black men's socioeconomic political standing, which wasn't great. And then on top of that, you have, black men mass incarceration, going to jail, women, adjusting to that and, basically, making, black men with felonies and thugs and rape and pookies the new normal. And I think a great deal of the problem is black women have lost the art of actually dealing with men that are established, regardless of race. So they're used to dealing with dusties. They're used to dealing with men with felonies, used to being the boss bitch, shit being in their name. You know what I mean? Everybody dreads the black female secretary. You know what I mean? Who thinks that, she's educated because she's working in an office surrounded by educated, men, whether they be black or non-black, but for the most part, they're going to be non-black. And when you look at her situation with who she's dating, she's almost never dating a man that's either on her level or above. She's dating some Ray Ray and Pookie. He could be a muscle bound Ray Ray and Pookie. He could just be, just some dude that's just street, or some dude that's just, the type that like bigs up his girl, like, yeah, my baby, she work in the office. What do you do? Oh, I work outside. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna shit on guys that work outside, but I'm just saying, there is this idea that, most jobs that are manual labor, and don't require an education, don't pay that great. You see? And so, you get a lot of that sort of dynamic. In my experience, black women, a lot of them have a problem with black men who have surpassed them. They have a problem with black men who make more money than them or more educated than them. And they snub their nose. They're so used to running around, snubbing their nose, at the black men that are beneath them, that when they come across a black man that's above them, man, do they get in their feelings. And I don't know how a woman who thinks that she's supposed to be ahead of not only her men, but can't even adjust and place herself in the subordinate or submissive position with dealing with other races of men, can interracially date. I don't know how that works. Black men, in my opinion, are very, confusing group, right? Because, we're labeled with hyper masculinity, but at the same time, how are you truly in your masculine if you're not, financially stable enough to provide and support, a family? So that's why I said the black man's life expectancy is up until 30, because it's cute for you to just operate and exist how black men operate and exist until you're 30. Then after 30, now it's like, where's your house, or where's your condo, or, where's your 401k, where's your retirement, where's all that stuff. And so, when we get to talking about, black men, they don't stay with the non-black women that they get with or have babies by and whatnot. Yeah, I would say that they get divorced before 30, or the relationship falls apart before 30, when these men have to be established. And don't conflate those men with the black men that are established. That's another huge mistake that black women make. Hell, Ayami Loho did a video and she said it point blank, period. You know what I'm saying? Like that she equalizes black men who are established with black men who are not. I'm like, you don't ever do that, chick. I mean, talk about a fast track way to make sure that no established man ever deals with you. Because an established man, that's offensive for you to put a black man that's established on par with a black man who's not established. That is offensive. Any man for that matter. And so, like, even when it comes to, that's like me putting baby mamas on par with childless women and thinking childless women aren't going to get offended. When the childless woman is the one that has the discipline, she put in the discipline. You know what I mean? Or if I put a woman who works out every day of the week on par with a woman who does it, who sits around and eats Rochers every damn day and hasn't, gotten off the couch in 3 days. You don't equalize those two things. But see, a lot of times you have black women, Ayami Loho did it, they will do that to try to diminish the position of the black man so that they don't have to follow, or they don't have to submit, or they don't have to get with the program. And the thing is like, not only do black women do that with black men, they also do it with other races of men. And not only that, other races of men see that online. A lot of y'all be running your mouths, you're talking crazy, you're saying a whole bunch of stupid shit. Kevin Samuels has 1 million followers pretty much at this point. 1 million followers. You know what I mean? The black women that call on the Kevin Samuels show are being an example to the world. And you know who the world is empathizing with right now? Black men. They're not empathizing with black women, when it comes to black men and black women dating. They're not. You got, you got other races of men sitting there saying, damn, I didn't know it was bad. I see why black men date out. You got other races of women saying, damn, I see why black men come over here. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, because some of them are trying to leverage that just the same as this white guy in this video was trying to leverage, his white male status of literally bringing nothing to the table other than his whiteness. And so for all you white people that are in my comment section right now or silently watching, because I know you're out there. I see you. Okay. This is the type of framework. This is the type of shit that we're talking about when we talk about, these sort of belief systems, that come with the social conditioning of white supremacy that affects even white people. For this white guy to sit up there and say, oh, well, black women, y'all pores. And I know that you're trying to move up the ladder, and I don't cut it for these modern white women. So, I'm going to offer you, what I got going on right now, which isn't good enough for the white women that I actually want and desire, so, fair exchange, right? Fair exchange. Literally, my whiteness and my white privilege, for your, submission. And then what I need you to do is I need you to help do some flybys past the white women, because I know how much white women really can't stand seeing a white man with a black woman, because she's saying to herself, what could this black woman possibly offer, this white man, right? Because that is an idea that I, as a white man, have contributed to facilitating in her own mind, that she is better than you. So I'm going to use you as the insult to make her feel some type of way and maybe perhaps change her behavior so that she comes back to me as whitey, right? Literally, this is what is being said. That video is so cringe. It's so cringe. It's insane. And I'm not going to sit there and put his fucked up behavior on black women. But what I'm saying is, in terms of black women talking about, we're going to go out here and we're going to date white men. Blah! Do the whole Howard Dean shit. We're going to date white men. Blah! Right? Y'all, I'm like, that's a serious uphill battle. I'm not telling black women not to do whatever the hell they want to do. They can do whatever the hell they want to do. But the market is different. And brothers have been online trying to tell y'all this, some better than others, have been trying to tell y'all this, in terms of, reputation matters. And again, there's plenty of areas where black men got shitty ass reputation. Deadbeat dads, niggas in jail, all that shit. Shitty ass reputation. But black women have not come to terms with their reputation. They always think that just because they up and decide to want to do something, that they can just go off and do something. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, they don't want to put in the work. The same black woman that has a problem with the patriarchy, and submitting to, a black man, I don't believe that they're going to just, oh, well, I'm just totally comfortable with submitting to a white man. I don't buy that bullshit. And especially listening to these white guys, talk about, how well, oh, I can get away with, not only can I can get away with shit against black women because, their daddies aren't there, or I can get away with shit with black women because, I could offer them less because they're just, again, here we go with the Jay-Z. My presence is charity, right? My presence is charity, and then, talk about a toxic situation where you have, and this is the one thing that I say, as toxic as two self-hating people getting together, like a dark-skinned black man and a light-skinned black woman, you know what I mean? Like, they're so into each other, regardless of whether you want to say that their union is rooted in self-hatred. They're so into each other. They're not trying to do flybys on anybody else. They're not trying to do flybys. There are black men who will do flybys on black women who didn't want them, but doing flybys with a light-skinned woman, it's not really a thing. You know what I mean? I'm sure it exists, but to a lesser extent. I think there's more black men that would try to do flybys with a white woman or a non-black woman than do with a black woman, because the whole attitude is it's not the insult is to be that she's not black. That's where the insult is. But I'm saying with white men, like, I mean, just imagine you got, okay, a swirler goes and tries to date this white guy that was in that video. He wants to use the black woman to do flybys past white women. And the black woman wants to use the white guy to do flybys past black men. But that tells me that what both of them actually want is they want their own. The white guy wants a white woman, he can't get her. The black woman wants a black man, he can't get him. But when you take a thirsty, self-hating, dark-skinned black man and he's with a light-skinned woman, that's the ultimate for him. That's where he wants to be. And when you take a light-skinned woman who's self-hating and you know, as Cap would call her, and she is with a dark-skinned man because she wants nothing more than his thirst. She wants to have a man thirst her, which again, a light-skinned guy is not going to do. A white man is not going to do. But a dark-skinned, self-hating black man, oh yeah, he's going to thirst her and suck the toe jam out of her toes and lick between her ass crack and everything else. Oh, she wants all that. So, I asked Cap several times on multiple occasions, how do you separate two self-hating people? How do you separate them? You see what I'm saying? How do you separate them? Because like even when the white guy is linking up with the black woman, I don't think like it's not from a position of self-hatred. It's a position at least in this case of this white guy, he doesn't make the cut in his own community. And that's one thing that people need to be mindful of when it comes to interracially dating, man. You don't ever want the other person to be aware of the fact that you are with them because you couldn't get what you wanted from your own community. You're a loser in your own community, and you couldn't make the cut. If you want to see somebody's whatever illusion somebody has about you wash away, let them be smacked in the face with that reality. He basically put it out there to where no black woman can date him or should date him, because he flat out said, I think you all have low self-esteem. I think you all have low self-esteem. Now, there is a black male version of that, I would argue, where you get some of these white girls that white men, I've seen it happen at least 2 or 3 times. I remember there was this chick. Her name was Matilda, right? Everybody called her Tildy. She was from, I don't know what she was, Alabama or something, real drawn country accent. And she was one of them thick ass white girls she didn't have like a whole fat ass, but she had like them wide country hips. You know what I'm saying? Real small waist, wide country hips, right? And the brothers was on it. They were on it. Like she literally became a bad bitch overnight. They were like, don't wear this, wear that. Next thing you know, she's walking around with yoga pants and these like stretch jeans. And motherfuckers was like, damn. Matilda? Damn. I didn't know it was like that. You know what I mean? Like you ever see that white girl that like doesn't know what to wear? She's like, people are like, she hangs around majority white people her whole life and shit. And, she doesn't know what she has. It's like, yo, that has premium value over here with all that thickness. White guys are probably teasing her, making her feel she's fat, and, she's wearing shit. She's wrapping the sweater around her waist because she thinks, and then she gets around a bunch of black guys, and black guys done gassed her head up. Next thing you know, she's posting every picture she can post on Instagram from every angle. Yeah, girl, let me turn around. Let me see that. Oh, hell yeah. So like, and her self-esteem is growing by the day. You know what I mean? I'll let me pull up. Let me pull up a white. I'll pull up. I'll see if I can find some of these white women that are on social media that you already know their whole audience is black. Like, you already know. And you go back to the 80s, these women would have been considered fat. I mean, just straight up fat. And then on top of that, like, some of these women, going back to what I said about white women making asses now, some of these women, like back in the day, they would have just let themselves go. But now with all this fitness, you're getting some of these women that, like, they got hella potential because they got the thickness, they got the weight, they got the curves. All they got to do is just tone it up, go to the gym, tighten it up. And then it's just on a whole different level. Make you see it and you get your guts get all twisted up. You're just like, oh goodness, where did that come from? I wasn't prepared for that. It's there. And so, that changed the whole category. Right. But, or I say it creates a new category. That's what I should say. It creates a new category. The thick ass white woman category. That shit was not present in the 80s. I can tell you that. There was no category of thick ass white woman like that. They were unicorns. Okay? And arguably, I'm sure with white men, the Jasmine Kendrick types, which, by the way, I've kind of like faded from her a little bit because, like, she's starting to look like kind of in the anorexic territory. I'm like, why does it look like every time I see a picture of her, she's getting skinnier by the day? Like, the bitch about to disappear. I love the hourglass. I love the curves. Hourglass for me, hourglass and the gap between the legs. Oh, the nigga kryptonite. If you want to assassinate SWP, send a bitch that's got the hourglass with the fucking gap between her legs, bow-legged, and some fishnet stockings and some open-toed heels. I'm dead. I'm done. You know what I mean? No. That that shape right there just does it for me. But anyway, got the diamond, when she's standing in front of you and you can see the light through her leg. Oh, nigga. Anyway, yeah, but, what was I saying? But yeah, I mean, the whole sexual market, it's totally different. It is not equal. It is not even. When people try to sit there and it's just a matter of people just moving around on the chessboard. I'm like, no, it's not just a matter of that. You know what I mean? There are myths behind each gender and race, like each gender race category. There are myths, there are stereotypes, there is media, reinforcement. It's like, Asian men are trying to get away from this whole pocket protector nerd Asian man stereotype, and sisters are trying to get away from the angry black woman, the diva, the queen, the non-cooperative, non-submissive, overweight black. They're trying to get away from that. But you gotta accept the reality that there was a lot of women that were embracing that for a long time for various reasons. I still sit there and I look at this, the hypergamous camp versus the for Harriet, I'm not wearing makeup camp, even though she started wearing makeup again. But I'm like, you went through all that, and I'm like, did that shit benefit you? Like, did you win? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you ever do or support something where you don't win? That's like me saying, tomorrow I'm going to stop working out, stop going to the gym, and then I'm going to go out here, I'm going to gain 300 pounds, and then I'm going to demand that women accept me for me on principle. Like that, and then try to argue and debate and say people are being shallow because they don't want my 300-pound ass? Like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I just walked in the room. What are the parameters here? Okay, I got to be masculine. I got to be muscular. I got to make money. Okay, cool. All right, I'll come back when I got all three of those things, and we gonna have some fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna argue with that shit. You know what I mean? Granted, yeah, there's certain Eurocentric beauty standards, white beauty standard, all that shit. Yeah, that's not fair. You know? I mean, hell, like, I mean, what is the white male beauty standard? I don't know. The white guy with the slick Giorgio Armani hair with the 5 o'clock shadow. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the look, right? I mean, I see those guys and I get intimidated. I'm like, shit, I mean, I can't fuck with that. I mean, he looks like a man. You know what I mean? But ironically, there's an opposite where, you'll get, other races of men that, that feel some type of way because of the myths that surround black men. I don't know how many times, I've gone out and, met a group of people and white guy starts grabbing his girl's leg and pulling her closer and everything when we shake hands and he sees the look in her eyes and shit like that. I'm not even paying attention to the broad. You know what I mean? I've had white guys, I'm sitting there, I don't even know there's a boyfriend around, or it's not even the boyfriend. It's the guy that likes her, but isn't her boyfriend yet. He's trying to be, but he's going about it totally the wrong way. And I'm just sitting there, I'm, meet and greet friends of friends and type of shit. And we're talking and bullshitting about something. And, I'm talking to some white woman and I'm not even thinking about hollering at her because she just, whatever, she's not my type or whatever. And then out of nowhere, some white guy like throws his shoulder in me and trying to, like, literally, white guy, like, the top of his head is like at the bottom of my chin and he's like throws his shoulder in me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, the fuck was that about? And I've had that happen. And it's like, again, like, do white men do that to Asian men? Are they worried about Asian men fucking their girl? And see, you know what the really fucked up part is? When it comes to white supremacy in this whole situation. And I think I've spoken about this before. It is this everybody, including black women, push the whole narrative of black men want other races of women. Black men want white women. As though it's not a two-way street. And I'm saying, this is what I gotta say to white men. If white women were not sexually attracted to black men, which a lot of times they may hide it, you may not know about it, whatever. If they didn't have fantasies about black men and the forbidden fruit and all that, again, that white men help facilitate with movies like Birth of a Nation and all that shit, then why are you threatened? Why are you worried about a black man? Like black men are not running around here just raping white women. Let's get that out the way. This is what they burnt down Wilmington, North Carolina in the insurrection of 1898 for. Because there was a black newspaper and the guy wrote in the newspaper and he was like a real light-skinned black dude. He was like, it is perfectly plausible that the black man is sufficiently attracted for a white woman to be attracted to him. Man, them white men lost it. But he wrote that in the paper. You can go on Vox News and type in when white supremacy took over a town. It's called the Insurrection of 1898. It says it right in the vidumentary, right? And I've always felt some type of way about that. Like it's some one-way street. Like it's black men just sitting around thirsting after white women. When like I said, I'm like, man, Aisha Diaz all damn day. Like what white woman is fucking with that? Like what are you talking about? But anyway, I'm just saying, they always kill me with that, that it's a one-way street. But I'm like, nigga, I came by myself. I walked in the room and you over here clutching your girl. You over here squeezing her tight and shit. What are you worried about what she's going to do or what she's going to try? Don't you have control of your bitch? You know what I'm saying? Why is it my presence threatens you so goddamn much? I'm not even talking to her. I'm not even in her face. But yet you done sat around and spent too much time on Pornhub going through the blacked.com section. You know what I mean? Watching them damn stupid ass skits. Oh my God. My husband Chad doesn't pay too much attention to me. But I've been having this tennis instructor lately and I just think he's really hot. And, since my husband doesn't want to pay attention to me, he's probably out there in LA fucking those other whores. You know what I mean? I think I'm going to take the liberty to have some fun with Derek. His name is always Derek. Those pornos are so fucking cheesy and shit. And here's Gabriel, my piano instructor. Like, I'm like, oh my God, it's the same thing every time, every single fucking time, you know. And it's always, and it's another thing that they do. The black man fucking the white woman in the white man's mansion, in the white man's house. Go watch black.com and you'll see the power cues. The black man is there as a guest. He's hired by the white man to train his wife as a personal trainer or some bullshit. You know what I mean? And basically, again, black men didn't come up with black.com and all these other sites, the interracial porn. White men came up with that shit. This is them, pushing their fears and their white supremacy. You know what I mean? And what I mean by pushing their fears and their white supremacy, white men fear white men lusting black women or black men taking white women. But at the same time, they reinforce white supremacy by they're the one that that is the dominant economic force in the situation. It's the same with cuckolding, which is like another thing where you get white men that pay black bucks, to have sex with their wives and stuff like that, right? And they jerk off to it's weird shit, I mean, even what's his name, Wifey's World. She was like this white woman that, middle-aged white woman that was just giving all type of blowjobs in the early 2000s. She was all over the damn internet. And what was I gonna say? About Wifey's World. Now she's having sex with black men. You know what I mean? They made several hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, with their little private porn site. But now they've introduced black men into it because there's just something that's so taboo and so interesting about seeing, black men with Wifey's World. Like, it's just, again, like I said, there's all these myths and these sort of like ideas and pathologies that surround the sexual market, and it's not even. So anyway, I've kind of rambled on and talked about other stuff, but that's all I gotta say. Jessica X video was interesting. That video that the white guy did was totally cringe. Absolutely cringe. I hope black women are paying attention. I hope they're a lot smarter, than a lot of the loudest voices online are. Yeah. Anyway, be careful out there in the swirl game, regardless of whether you're a black man or a black woman. Be careful. You know what I mean? Because you can get yourself embarrassed, or even worse, you can get yourself hurt. So anyway, that's my video. SWP out.